We're here to recognize and honor 7 individuals who have come through Thiel College. And one thing that I've learned as the alumni director in the last 8 months is that alumni are either connected to a professor, connected to another alum, or connected to some staff. And it doesn't matter how we're connected, but we're all connected. And it is really cool that Thiel has been doing that since 1866. So enjoy the program today, and enjoy your lunch, and have a great homecoming.
On behalf of the Thiel College Alumni Association, I would like to thank you all for attending today's luncheon. Homecoming is always my favorite time of year, and the Alumni Awards ceremony is one of my favorite things. That's because when we speak to current students about what it means to be an exceptional alumni, our honorees today exemplify everything that we talk about. Today we will honor a number of alumni who have contributed to the college in a number of ways. Each year, the Alumni Board pays special attention in making sure that today's honorees are exceptionally deserving, and this year is no different than any other. And at this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Traverso up for some remarks.
As you all know, I don't need to tell you this, Thiel says right here at the top of my notes, Thiel is a special place. Did you know that? I think you did. But it is a place in which students come and gain a sense of belonging, a sense of connection, as David said, and most importantly, they have a sense that at Thiel they will be supported, not to be told what to become, but they can frame their own sense of who they want to be. Is it an accountant? Is it a doctor? Is it a scientist? Is it an ethical citizen? All of that is before them, and we're here to support them to do this. And we know Thiel does that well when we come to a luncheon like this. For our distinguished alums here today, these recipients are really remarkable. Dr. Stephen Rowe and Dr. David Fauth have both built lives of drive, professionalism, leadership, educational and scientific excellence. Their careers are a shining example of what's possible with a Thiel education. Dr. Chris Shinkman, I thank you for your unfailing engagement with the college and your interest in our programs. Of course, Barry and Carol, who are close colleagues of mine, your commitment to Thiel College is truly humbling. Our community and your alma mater have been forever strengthened by your commitment. Kyle Fiedler, Antonio Quarterman, wow. The Alumni Board and the faculty of Thiel College have found that you are individuals of great potential, already achieving great things in your professional lives. I encourage all of you here today to dive into this great weekend of activities. We are going to win that football game. Yes? And if we don't, we're still going to have a blast, okay? Quite honestly, we rely on our alums to connect with the college, to connect with our students, whether it's through our Health Professions Institute, our new ACE programs, alumni engagement programs, whether it's visiting a class, whether it's serving on the board. We are so indebted to the generosity of our alums. So on behalf of the administration, the faculty, staff, and students of Thiel College, I congratulate the recipients today of these honors, and I plead with you and I thank you for your continued engagement with Thiel College.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Mallory. I'm a 1979 graduate of Thiel College, and I am a cousin of Stephen Rowe, who's being honored today. He is receiving, I have to make sure I know, the Distinguished Alumni Award. Okay. It's my honor to be here today to introduce Steve to you and to be here while he is presented with this award. He's actually my cousin by marriage, but he and my cousin Sharon have been married for almost 50 years. So in our family, I think you're already a cousin by family when you get married, but certainly after 50 years, somewhere along the way, he became family. So he is really my cousin. And I hate this part that I have to do the glasses off and on, but if I keep them on when I look up, you all look weird. So we can't have that. Steve and Sharon have 2 adult children, Allison and Alan. along with a grandson, Jacob. And as a warning to Steve, I did talk to Allison and Alan this week. They gave me a little help. So Steve is a 1965 graduate of Thiel, and to have graduated 53 years ago from college, I think you have to agree he must have been a child prodigy. There's actually some truth to that. He was younger than the typical student when he started Thiel. He didn't turn 18 until midway through his freshman year. And the reason for that was that his parents were supposed to wait until he was 6 to start school in Homer City, but they apparently were a little bit of rebels because they didn't like that rule, and they fought it, and they were able to get around it. And I'll ask that you keep that rebel comment in mind, along the lines of the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But we're here today because Steve is an accomplished professional in higher education. After graduating from Thiel, he received a master's from the University of Arkansas and his PhD from the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I'm not going to bore you with all the details about his professional life. They're in the program. Everyone can read those, but I think it's important to note that he currently serves as Vice President of Concord University's Research and Development Corporation and as an independent consultant for higher education. And he's also held several other prestigious positions in higher education. Obviously, Steve is very intelligent. You know that from a very brief conversation with him, and he has a strong work ethic. One of the things that I learned from Allison and Alan is that working hard didn't start after Steve left Thiel. That started a long time ago. It probably started as far back as when he was a little kid, and that's why his parents knew to fight this rule about holding off on sending him to school. But we certainly know it was the case by the time he was in high school, where he earned a $1,000 annual scholarship from a gentleman known as Mr. James Mack, who was the owner of the J.C. Murphy Company. And he would award this sum, which was a very large sum back in those days, right? He would award this only to United high school graduates who had grades above the level that he set. So clearly, Steve was already accomplished as a high school student. Also, during Steve's last semester at Thiel, he worked the midnight to 8 a.m. shift with the Sharon Tube Company in Sharon. He apparently liked Sharon. He married Sharon, he worked in Sharon for Sharon Tube. Now, he only earned $2.25 an hour, and he did everything from sweeping the floor to feeding steel into the furnace to running a pipe straightening machine. And it was enough for him to pay summer school costs, more on that later, and to buy a 1958 Chevy Impala coupe and pay for his first term of grad school at the University of Arkansas. While Steve was at Thiel, he joined the United States Marine Corps platoon class leaders in the fall of '62. He wanted to do that when he first got here in the fall of '61, but he wasn't 18 yet, and his parents wouldn't give the permission. And although he worked hard and he was a good Marine, he ultimately found that it wasn't a good fit for him. But what was a good fit for him is that he still, to this day, gets a Lowe's veterans discount. So back to Steve's 1965 graduation. That didn't happen in June like it does for most students. His graduation was delayed by a couple of months. It seems that back then, Thiel required chapel twice per week. So remember my rebel comment. So during those visits to chapel, Steve managed to have a couple of run-ins with the campus pastor, who was Pastor Gibson. Does anybody remember Pastor Gibson besides Steve? Okay. All right, good. So apparently on one occasion, the pastor overheard Steve referring to him by the name of a Western movie cowboy named Hoot Gibson. And that led to a lecture on respecting your elders. It wasn't long after that when Steve was in the front row at chapel when the chapel candle exploded, and apparently the candle cap went sailing out into the chapel. Well, Steve found this was humorous, and he laughed out loud in chapel. And this didn't please Pastor Gibson, and he accused Steve of being responsible for it, or at least being protecting the person who was responsible. He was neither. We are sure of that. He was neither. But the pastor said he'd be watching him for future infractions. Well, then it turns out that during the last semester at Thiel, one of Steve's fraternity brothers was responsible for collecting the attendance cards to show that you actually went to chapel. And he got caught filling out some for people who didn't actually attend chapel. Steve wasn't one of them, but some of his fraternity brothers weren't attending, but they were getting their cards filled out. So when Pastor Gibson found out about this, he added a half hour to graduation requirements for all members of that fraternity. I guess a lot of Steve's fraternity brothers had at least a half an hour, maybe above what they really needed, but Steve was right on the nose with 120 hours, and he didn't find out that he wasn't going to be graduating until the diploma cover had no diploma in it, but only a note from Pastor Gibson that he would have to make up the half hour in order to graduate. So he went to summer school, took a 3-hour class, and graduated in August. Now, this whole story could explain Steve's reaction about 10 years later when I was a student at Thiel working in the alumni office. One of my jobs was to update the alumni addresses. Well, I noticed that Steve's was out of date. And since I had it, I updated it. I was really proud of that. Next time I saw him, I let him know. He goes, "Yeah, I've been getting calls from Thiel's fundraisers." Thank you for that. But I bet now he's grateful that I got Thiel and him back together, because this is a very honorable award to be getting, and I'm sure he's very proud to be doing that. I know that Steve enjoyed his time at Thiel, and he was active with the Delta Sigma Phi's, and I also know that that is a big part of campus life at Thiel. And while I also have a lot of stories about those times, I'm going to keep it to just one note. That legend has it that Steve and his fraternity brothers may be responsible for a rowboat that is still somewhere at the bottom of the Shenango River. So please join me in congratulating Steve on this well-deserved honor.
Just told my wife that I'm going to be talking to my lawyer a little later next week. Both of my children are going to be dropped from the will. I wondered why my son sent me that email asking me all these personal questions about my time at Thiel. Now I know, and he will pay. Dave told me that I only had 2.5 minutes to say something to the assembly today, and those of you that may know academic deans know that you're never going to get away with 2.5 minutes from an academic dean. But I'm in recovery. I'm a recovering academic dean, and maybe I can make that list. But I told Karen and Dave that one of the reasons it's been a while since we've been back in Greenville, I was waiting for the heat to come off. I wasn't really that bad. And it just seemed like things had a habit of sometimes occurring. But I really would like to thank David and Thiel for thinking that I'm an extinguished? No, distinguished, okay, a distinguished alum of the college. I, like all of you, could stand up here and start going through the names of people that were influential on us. It was, for me, more than one. The faculty and the staff of this institution were instrumental in keeping me out of trouble at times and giving me the background that I needed in order to do a lot of different things in my professional career. Now, you're an English major, and what are you doing as a dean of engineering at a small engineering college? And what's this business about computer-aided design and what's virtual reality got to do with English? But I think what that does is it I really have to thank Thiel for the education more than I do the honor which you're bestowing on me today. What happened here affirms, I believe, for you and all the time for me, the validity of the liberal arts education. Going out and talking to high school seniors right now, you know, you've got an ace in your sleeve that cannot be beat by Penn State or WVU or any of the bigger schools, because faculty and the staff at Thiel are going to see to it that you're going to be very well prepared when you actually grow up and get the degree and stop acting goofy and have to be a professional. So thank you. Thank you all for who you are and what you did for me. I don't know that I can ever repay the debt, but I know there's one there. So Karen, I didn't mind making my alumni contributions. I guess I will continue to do that. And I think I'll put the next one in memorial in your name. No, not a memorial. No, it will be well, you know what I'm trying to say. So thank you.
Hello, everybody. My connection with Dave is that I was a year behind him in school, and we were both chemistry majors, and it's my honor and pleasure to present David today for a Distinguished Alumnus Award. Dave is a member, as you know, of the class of 1973, and I found out he came to Thiel with quite a pedigree. You know, his father, Pastor Paul Fauth, was a member of the class of 1948. He had 2 aunts, an uncle, and 2 brothers that all attended Thiel. And in fact, he has such strong Thiel connections that someone was able to dig up a photograph of him recently. It was posted for the Thiel Spirit Day. I don't know if you all got to see that, but it's a picture of Dave as a toddler, wearing short shorts, playing with a toy clarinet, and wearing a shirt that says, I'm a little, what did it say? I'm a little tomcat on it. So the little tomcat did make it to Thiel as part of the class of 1973. And I'm in possession of another photograph of Dave. And this is the chemistry senior class of 1973 that I picked up last year at the Hair Science Connector dedication. And I have to tell you, this picture brings back some really, really wonderful memories for me. This was a wonderful, wonderful bunch of people. And you wouldn't think chemistry majors could have so much fun together, but we really did. So this was I just have to say, before I move on, this was such a strong class. Everyone was so bright, and you know, David was bright. He was a star among many stars in this class. But out of this class of 10 chemistry majors, you know, David was one of 4 to receive a PhD. Another individual received an MD PhD. There was a Doctor of Dental Science, and among the rest, I think there are 3 master's degrees and 2 MBAs, all out of a class of 10 chemistry majors. So Dave obviously was a very good student. He was a hard worker, just an all-around nice guy. Everybody liked to hang out with Dave. And he was a frequent member of the Dean's List, and he was a lab assistant, and just a hard worker. He also stood out for other reasons among the chemistry majors of that year, and he was good at sports. And you know, chemistry majors aren't typically known for being good at sports. So he was a co-captain of the cross-country team, and he lettered in baseball, and was a member of the varsity T Club. He went on to the University of South Carolina from Thiel, and in 1979, he earned his PhD in inorganic chemistry. From there, Dave spent most of his career working for the Department of Energy Laboratory at the Savannah River National Labs. And talking with one of his classmates about his work, you know, wondering what was going on at the Savannah River National Laboratory, his friend Andy Mance said that, you know, Dave was playing in the big leagues, you know, at a national laboratory. He had extensive experience in radiobioassay, environmental analysis, and industrial hygiene. He's authored several papers, and in 2018 he received the Founders Award for radioassay and radiochemical measurements. Throughout his life, you know, his professional life and his retired life, Dave gives very freely of his time and has done numerous volunteer activities He's been a softball coach for his daughters and even today continues as a softball coach. He's worked with youth as a science fair judge through his volunteer work with the American Chemical Society. He's a part of the South Carolina Advisory Council on Aging. He is the chair of the Savannah River Lab Retirees Association and provides expert advice on Medicare benefits to the retirees. He's also active at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, singing in the choirs and serving on various committees. And I'm sure Dave considered his biggest successes things like his 42-year marriage to his beautiful wife, Lynn, who's with us today, and the father of 2 daughters, Laura and Jennifer, and proud grandfather of 2. So please join me in congratulating David.
Yeah, Bob mentioned my father was a Thiel graduate, and this actually would have been his 70th reunion. He passed away last August, but had basically a full life. And growing up, Thiel was preached to me from the day I was born, as evident of the picture that I have there. Half my wardrobe was Thiel. And I also had 2 aunts and an uncle that also attended Thiel, and a brother that attended Thiel. But growing up, when it came time to making the decision to come to Thiel, what to do after graduating from high school, Thiel was really the last place on my mind. I just had a little bit too much Thiel at that point. And so I was really intent on going to either the University of Pittsburgh or Indiana University. And I thought, well, this is what I'm going to do. And my dad said, you know, you've got a limited budget in terms of what you're thinking about for college. And we sat down. Being a Lutheran pastor and being a member of a Lutheran congregation, there were a lot of scholarships that were available to come to Thiel. And so really when I think about it, the main reason I came to Thiel was financial. Thiel was going to be the cheapest place for me to go to school. And as things wear out, or basically work out, it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. I was attended the Hall of Fame banquet last night, and almost every speaker that came up, the main topic that they basically presented is Thiel is where you learn to do the right thing. The environment, the students, the faculty, and just being in Greenville, you breathe this aspect of 24/7. And I look at that in terms of what we do, and I look at one of the main things I like to do is I get the bell and pull out and run through the list of accomplishments and what people, the graduates of Thiel have been able to do with the Thiel education. And not so much in their professional years, but it's outside that professional environment and how much of a big impact our alumni are able to do on the nation as a whole. My wife, I retired about 7 years ago from the Savannah River site. And at that point in time, you know, I had a lot of things I was going to do, play golf, play tennis, relax. And I found that my wife tells me that she sees less of me now that I'm retired than when I was working. The opportunity in retirement of being a service person, serving others, is just something I get so much agreement and enjoyment out of. We have a large, Aiken is a retirement center, and we have just loads of people that need assistance, and retirement has basically offered me the opportunity to get out and help these people. And I think one of the main, I tell people that the main reason I help is so that those people will be able to help me when I need that assistance. But again, I look at Thiel as being the environment that really put me in a position where I feel comfortable and love serving folks. Thank you very much.
Thiel has a long history of being impacted by married couples. It all started with Barbara and Louis Thiel at the very inception of this institution. I know many of you out there have heard that name many times, Barbara and Louis Thiel. And the interesting thing about that is I thought about those two is that I never heard them mentioned individually. I never heard just Louis Thiel. I never heard just Barbara Thiel. It was always Louis and Barbara Thiel. Now we are recognizing another couple today that have had a big impact on this institution. Carolyn and Mary Stamm. Now, they have accomplished something that Louis and Barbara Thiel did not. They graduated from Thiel. And Carol was a student of mine. Now, I want to mention just some of the impact they have had. And the reason I know so much about Carol and Barry is this. 2 years ago, on this very podium, they received what I consider to be Thiel's greatest distinction, the Haller Institute Entrepreneur of the Year. Remember that? Good. Now, on that occasion, which, by the way, is the one and only time this award has ever been given to a married couple. And rightly so. But after the presentation, they were invited to tell their story. And what a story they told. And what came out of that story was the true partnership that these two have. I've been married for many years. My wife's sitting there and she doesn't want me to say how many. However, I don't think I have ever encountered a marriage that so encompassed the total lives of both of you. Not only from a family perspective, but also in the business arena and just about any other aspect of your lives. And I think you can be proud of that. Now, this partnership that they have has had a big impact on Thiel in many ways. Number one, Barry, who served as chair of the board and will just be stepping down in a month or two, was head of the $50 million campaign, which became the $60 million campaign, which became the $65 million campaign, and that is success. Let's recognize that. Now, I want to take this opportunity to thank both of you because you were a true team during this campaign. Ruth and I were privileged to be part of the campaign effort, and we traveled together to Florida and Washington and Cleveland and Pittsburgh. And you were always there and involved in this effort. And I had a very personal aspect of this whole campaign, and that was, part of it was to create the David Miller Chair of Business and Accounting. And the money raised for that was set at $1 million, and that was successful. And we have sitting right over here my colleague, Professor Gary Witowski, please stand, who is the first recipient of that, and congratulations to him. Now, that wasn't the end of it. I have a senior seminar where I invite graduates back to tell their story. Here's a man that's a regular back there, Damon Taylor. And last year, one night, totally unannounced, President Traverso shows up. And I'm a pretty organized and tight guy. And she showed up unannounced, and I didn't have a seat for her, and I didn't know what was going on. I was a little bit irritated. And then we finally made arrangements for her to join us at the dinner table, and she was served. And then after that, she came up to me and says, "I want to speak." Oh my gosh, this is even more irritating. She wants to speak. Well, When I heard what she said, then I have to eat crow. Because what happened that night, one of the nicest things of my life. My wife, Ruth, the money that was excess in the campaign for my chair was used to endow the senior seminar course in her name. It wouldn't have happened without the success of the campaign and you two were the drivers. Now, they've done more for Thiel than just that. I've been here 55 years. I've taught in every classroom there is. But today I'm teaching in the finest classroom in this nation. And it's the Stamm auditorium. I love that room. It is absolutely perfect for teaching. And every day I go in there, the first thing I do is to set the thermostat to my liking. And it works. The small things in life. Oh yes, it has a huge board.
That's an inside joke for anybody that's had this class.
And most recently, and you're all aware of this, Dr. Burns referred to it, we had the dedication of the Science Connector last year, and the Stamms were very, very supportive of that effort, as they are so much that happens to Thiel. So today I am delighted to present Carolyn Berry for the Service to Thiel Award, and you have exceeded Lewis and Barbara by a mile.
Wow, how do you follow that? Actually, a comment I'd like to make is that how many schools could you go to that when you go to your first class in the fall of 1968, Professor Miller was a professor on campus at that time. Now, 50 years later, he and Ruth are really great friends, and he's introducing us here. I don't think there are too many in the country that you could have a school. Thiel is very special. And we would like to thank the Alumni Board for this recognition. It was unexpected. And we would like to thank Dr. Traverso for the leadership and direction she's taking the college in now. In the fall of 1968, I actually met Barry my first week at freshman orientation week, and that was 50 years ago, and we now have been married for 47 of that 50. And we were married in medical school, and we did run Barry's practice for 30 years together. So we do a lot together. We have been a team, and he's basically the face of our our relationship as being on the board and being more the out front person. But we are definitely a team, and Thiel was a very, very big factor in every aspect of our lives.
Well, I just would say it all started here for us, and we're very grateful. You know, we don't seek recognition or awards, I guess. It's a little choking. But thank you very much to the Alumni Board and to all of you. We look forward to where Thiel goes in the future. We're so excited that this is now over 2 years since Dr. Traverso and Kent have joined us, and I think it's been a whole new era for Thiel. This is already your third homecoming, if I'm not mistaken, right? But we think that things are going in a very positive direction. The board has a lot of things to deal with, and moving Thiel forward. We have our challenges, obviously, and we're meeting those. And I think long range, we have a bright future. And thank you to all of you, my fellow trustees who are here, and everybody. So thank you very much for this award.
I've always enjoyed occasions like this when we recognize people who have been important in the life of Thiel. During my tenure here, I had the opportunity to participate in these kinds of events many times. Today, though, is particularly special for me. Dr. Shankman and I are of the same student generation. I was class of 60, he was class of 62. I first met him in the fall of his freshman year. That was in September of 1958. So if my math is correct, that's 60 years. His bio is in the program. It outlines his accomplishments and his service to Thiel. I'm going to refer to it. I urge you to read it if you haven't. Chris graduated from Thiel with a bachelor's degree in French in 1962. He then went on to get a Master's of Education in Counseling from Westminster College and a PhD in Administration from the University of Pittsburgh. He's had a long, outstanding career in areas of fundraising, career counseling, and human resource development. His journey has taken him to administrative positions at some of the nation's most prestigious institutions: Cornell, Johns Hopkins, Stanford, Georgetown, and the University of Virginia. He has co-authored 3 books on human development. And he's had a long-time connection to fundraising, particularly for athletic purposes, and particularly at Stanford. He's currently the vice president of the Washington, D.C. Stanford Association. He's also been active on behalf of the University of Pittsburgh. He's a member of the Pitt Panther Club. These are just some of his extracurricular accomplishments. Chris has been a faithful supporter of Thiel. He was an active and committed undergraduate student, a student leader. He was a student government officer. He was senior class vice president. He was president of his fraternity, which was Lambda Chi Alpha. He was 3 years resident assistant in Harder Hall. That by itself should qualify you for a medal. He spent 1 year as a member of the football team, 1 year as a member of the basketball team. It was on the tennis courts where he excelled. He's a 4-year letter winner and team captain, and his efforts on the playing field earned him induction into the Thiel College Athletics Hall of Fame in 2013. As an alumnus, he has continued to be involved in Thiel. He has chaired fundraising efforts among alumni. He's a lifelong contributor to the annual fund. He's a charter member of the Blue Gold Club. He's a member of the Thiel Alumni Board. And he and his late wife, Marcia, who was class of 65, hosted both the Thiel Choir and the Thiel football team when those groups visited the nation's capital. Chris is being recognized for service to this institution. There are many ways in which someone can serve his or her alma mater. Simply by staying around, by coming back, and certainly by participating in events, by advocating on its behalf, and by adding to its resources, financial and otherwise. We think Chris Shankman has done that. I think, though, that alums can serve in other ways that are another way that is even more important. Alumni are sort of ambassadors for the college. And as they pursue their careers and go about their lives, their personal and professional associations and activities introduce Thiel to people who wouldn't otherwise know us. As they do this, they enhance the college's reputation, and I think they demonstrate the value of a Thiel education. This kind of service is invaluable and priceless. We think Chris Shankman has done that. Chris lives in Bethesda, Maryland. He has a son and a daughter and 4 grandchildren. Some of his family is here today, and he's going to introduce them. We're glad that all of you are here. He is certainly deserving of this award. Chris, on behalf of the faculty, on behalf of the college, I'm pleased to present you for this recognition. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. As Bob indicated, I'd like to introduce some of the members of my family who are here. My son Matthew, his wife, my daughter-in-law Amy, 2 of my grandchildren, Jack and Ebba, and my very special lady friend, Dr. Linda Noel, who is here as well. We all drove up from Washington, and as it turns out, tomorrow's Amy's birthday, and on Monday, Matt's heading off to South Africa for a week-long business trip, so this was a special effort on their part and very much appreciated by me. My daughter Elizabeth Carter is in Washington with her husband Todd and my other 2 grandchildren, and they had a conflict and unable to join us. As I was getting up from the table, Jack said to me, Grandpa, I have 3 words of advice for you. Be interesting, be brief, be seated. So I always follow the good advice that Jack gives me, and I'll try and do that. Needless to say, honored and grateful to be receiving this award. In keeping with the theme that we've heard, the people here are really such an important part of the connection and involvement with Thiel. When I arrived in the fall of '58, Roy Wilt, John Cooter, Bob Anderson were seniors, and that was 60 years ago. Others who I have thought about, Jim Biddle, Bob Olson, certainly, Elaine Posta, Howard Smith, Jim Dingfelder, Bev Titus, Jim Rumbaugh were really exceptional people. My classmate, Don Schweingruber, is an exceptional guy. Ben Hankey and Fred Hare, 2 other people that I think of as I look back on those years. And as Bob indicated, met my wife Marcia Freeberg Shinkman here when we were both undergraduates, and we were married for 47 years before she passed away. These individuals were role models, leaders, achievers, and people who you knew right away were going to do exceptional things after they were graduated from Thiel, and they have. Faculty members who made a lasting impression for me, Dr. Robert Bryan, Professor Richard Hayes, Dr. Robert Davies, Professor George Reese, exceptional people. Admissions officers here, Earl Mezoff, Dick Loester, Roy Moss, Jim McRoberts, continue to be people I admire and who made an important impact on my life. I have just a couple of thoughts that I'd like to share with you regarding service to Thiel, and Bob touched on this. A new development at Thiel and at many other campuses as well is the merger of alumni relations and fundraising or development to the point where they have become indistinguishable. The reaction on the part of some alums is, well, now it's clear. The only way they're interested in me is when they've got their hand out and when they want us to open our wallets or our checkbooks. And that is certainly not the case, and I'd like to suggest some other ways that we can continue to be of service of Thiel in addition to providing financial support. So what occurred to me is that the admissions office, through the PAW program, can use our help, and how important is that? Vital for the future of Thiel College. Admissions up 19% this year, tremendous development. We can recruit athletes, former athletes can recruit the next generation of athletes. Alumni can collaborate with faculty on research. And as I thought about it, social media has changed, in some ways, the relationship between the institution and the alums. So things like class agents or newsletters are really now obsolete because of the ways in which we can be in touch with one another. But other activities and events, homecoming, reunions, in my experience, alums want personal interaction and serve an important role there. Social media, of course, we are embracing. Thank you, David Hummel. New breath of fresh air, a new wave of energy, and keep it up. We're heading the right direction. We can certainly, as alums, provide full-time, part-time, summer jobs, internships for current students, and we can recruit on campus for our organizations, for permanent hires. Occurred to me that the building of the Cobblestone Hotel is a nice development that's going to assist us in that area. We can write articles for the Bell and the Telencian as well. And of course, the exciting new ACE Center, Alumni Career Engagement, been referred to. Martin Black is the commander-in-chief. He is a superstar. Thiel is lucky to have Martin Black, and I hope, Martin, you stay here for a long, long time. So on that note, congratulations to the other award winners. Thank you very much, and go Tomcats.
I can remember very vividly the first time that I met Kyle. He came into my office and introduced himself, and we began to have a nice chat. And I can remember the content of that discussion very, very clearly. I was inquiring about his background, and he told me he was a U.S. Marine. And right away I liked him, because I have the highest regard for those that serve our nation. And I started to inquire a little bit more about his service in the U.S. Marine, and I found out that he'd had 3 tours of duty. 1 in Iraq and 2 in Afghanistan, is that right? I got that backwards. 2 in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. Not nice places to be. But I always enjoy listening to people that serve our nation. And then our discussion continued. And I found out that he was involved with a family business, which is always dear to my heart. And that was a G&J fencing company down in the transfer area between Greenville and Sharon. And we had quite a discussion about small business. And throughout all this, the smile. I love people that smile, and this guy's got a winner. And I met his father today, and I can see where he got it. Now, I did do some business with Kyle, which I always like to do. I have a very nice shed in my backyard that was provided by the G&J Fencing Company. I needed to rent a U-Haul truck one day, and they have that franchise as well. Thank you for your good service. And Kyle became my advisee, and it took a number of my classes. And one of those was entrepreneurship. And in the entrepreneurship, I have every student develop a comprehensive business plan. And we have that class going right now. I love it. Every student pursues their own dream, whatever that may be. And I keep these business plans, and I've got a library down in one of my secret rooms that the dean doesn't even know about, filled with business plans. I never throw them away. because every so often a student contacts me, could be as much as 10 years later, and say, "Do you still have my business plan?" "Yes, I do." "Can I have it?" "You certainly may." He called me last week and wanted his, and he's got it. Now, the other thing Kyle's done, and this is a great service to Thiel, we know today, when we're talking to recruiters, how important internships are. It is such a valuable component of every resume. Gary and I and everybody else in the department worked so hard to make sure that they do it. And Martin Black is, of course, the starting point for all internships, and he does a great job for us. And he is providing an internship right now for my student assistant, Desiree, and she loves being associated with G&J Fencing. Now, while I'm talking about my entrepreneurship class, Ruth and I always enjoy going to the OBC dinners because the food is so good. I'm not a great fan of sweet potatoes. She loves them, but she has to eat them alone. But whoever makes the sweet potatoes for the OBC does it to my liking. She says they're too sweet. But anyway, a few years back, one of my students, Timothy Richardson, a fine young man. You remember him, Damon? I do. Timothy Richardson. I haven't seen him for a while. But Timothy was the speaker. And in his remarks, he told a little story. And it so captivated me that I asked him for a copy, which he provided. And this is the way I start my entrepreneur class. The first thing I say the very first night, I tell the students this. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion, or it will be killed. Every morning, a lion wakes up, and it knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle, or it will starve to death. Lessons learned. It doesn't matter whether you are a lion or a gazelle. When the sun comes up, you better be running. And that's what I want my entrepreneur students to do. Be running. Now, lo and behold, he was in the class. I gave him this thought. And here's what appears the next day in my office. Remember that? Yep. There it is. The lion. And I was flabbergasted. And here's the quote right down here. Beautiful picture. I have it hung permanently in my office. I said, "Kyle, where did you get this?" Well, he said, "It was in my father's office." Well, I said, "Did you ask your father? Does he know you've done this? Did he ask you for this?" He doesn't know a thing about it. He wondered where it went. Congratulations.
I apologize to David Hummel for making it so difficult to get all the information about me. And then we're not giving you a picture, and I see the one you picked, and I really regret not getting you one. Thank you for the kind words. I really do appreciate it. My father-in-law and my father are here. Father couldn't do it without him. So just want to thank all you guys for the award. That's it.
Good afternoon and happy homecoming, everyone. It is my great pleasure to present our final awardee of this ceremony today, Dr. Antonio Quarterman, and I will ask him to join me up on stage here. As one of this year's recipients of the college's Young Alumni Award. This is a very special opportunity for me, as I have had the opportunity to know Antonio since 14 years ago when he arrived on campus, all the way from St. Petersburg, Florida, for his freshman year of college. Then I had him as one of my staff members and colleagues within the Student Life Division, and now I consider Antonio someone to be a very good friend. In my opinion, it has never been a question as to whether or not Antonio would eventually receive an Alumni Award. Rather, the question has been, when will Antonio receive his Alumni Award? As you can see in his bio information in our program, Antonio was an accomplished athlete, successful scholar, and strong student leader during his time at Thiel. And as the Dean of Students, and actually the Assistant Dean of Students at the time Antonio was here, I could probably tell you some pretty fun stories about his adventures as a student at Thiel. But I'll spare him the embarrassment for today and save that for another time and place. Instead, this award is about Antonio's accomplishments and actions after graduating from Thiel. And the best way that I can describe Antonio as an alumnus is by saying that I feel he exemplifies the kind of alumni we would like our students to eventually become. Since graduating from Thiel, Antonio's commitment to the college has been unwavering. He spent his first few years working here. Then after moving to the Pittsburgh area, he served on the alumni board for 7 years, 2 of which he served as president. He has also volunteered for numerous initiatives, including things like serving on the presidential search committee, the successful presidential search committee that brought us President Traverso, the strategic planning committee, and supporting students in a variety of ways. Likewise, there's rarely an alumni event or gathering where Antonio doesn't make it a point to come back to campus and engage in. He's truly someone that I feel is very generous of his time, talents, and treasures at Thiel College. Professionally speaking, as mentioned, Antonio began his career in higher education at Thiel, but has since worked in leadership roles at Robert Morris University, the Community College of Allegheny County, and most currently the University of Pittsburgh, where he also earned his doctorate degree in higher education management. Unsurprisingly, he managed to progressively gain more and more responsibility at each institution, and he's built a strong professional network in higher education circles. Antonio has aspirations of eventually becoming college president, and there's no doubt in my mind that that will happen in the near future. Finally, on a more personal note, Antonio is a very proud father to his 2 young sons, Colton and Austin, who I've enjoyed having lunch with today. And he's enamored by his lovely wife, Jessica. I can't think of one time or one occasion that I've interacted with Antonio since he's been married that he hasn't spoken proudly of his family. He's a great family man, dedicated scholar, committed alumnus, and successful leader. And it is my pleasure, and as an alum, I just want to say that I couldn't be more proud to have Antonio Quarterman representing Thiel College as a distinguished alumni. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Mike, for the wonderful comments. It's funny to me because I don't know, still to this day, I don't know why he was crazy enough to hire me not once, not twice, but 3 times. I first just want to start off by acknowledging my family, my wife, my beautiful wife there, Jess, and my boys, Austin and Colt. They not only are the motivation for everything I do, but they are extremely supportive in me coming back to Thiel so much. And come on, man. In me coming back to Thiel and being involved in so many different things. So they are truly an inspiration to me, as you can see next to me here. I want to take a little bit of time to talk about my journey here at Thiel, because I've spent the last week or two really just trying to reflect on, my life before Thiel at home, my life here as a student, and my life after, and there's no doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be the man I am today if it wasn't for Thiel. And I don't mean that figuratively, I mean that literally. Every opportunity that I've had in life since I was 18 years old is a direct, excuse me, sorry. I cry every time I get up on these stages. It's a direct effect of an alumni, a staff member, a faculty member's ability to pour into my life in multiple different ways. It's funny to hear Mike talk about hiring me so much. But if it wasn't for the opportunity that I had to, early in my career, serve as the Director of Multicultural Affairs, I wouldn't be where I am in my career today. That spearheaded my career by giving me an opportunity to serve in a leadership capacity right out of grad school. I have friends and colleagues who have spent 10 years, 15 years trying to get to that level. And I was able to start that. He didn't make it easy for me. We had the director of multicultural affairs position open, and I told Mike, I said, I want to do it. He said, well, you don't have your master's degree. And I said, well, not yet. You don't have any experience. Well, not yet. But I had a lot of determination, a lot of great ideas. So he gave me an opportunity to earn a job, and I think his words at the time from him and Dr. Van Aken were, really need to wow us. You're not going to just get this job just because you do it for a year and do an okay job. You really need somebody who's going to be able to do what needs to be done. And they were able to, and I was able to do that with the support and help of Mike and Dr. Van Aken. When I think about what it means to be an alumnus here, there are a lot of great examples of that here in the room today, but none more special than Damon Taylor. So I first met him when I was 18 years old at a homecoming, I think in 2014, so 14 years ago. 2004, sorry, 14 years ago. And at that time, I didn't know who he was. Coach Clyde Morgan introduced me to him, and I thought he was just another bald-headed old guy. I had no idea who he was, but Coach Morgan definitely said I needed to meet him. And just like I think everybody's experienced with Damon here, he's at everything. So if it was homecoming, if it was speaking to classes, no matter what it was, Damon came back. He really served as a great example to me about what alumni should be and what it is to give their time to the college. Through my days here at Thiel, I had a number of great people who supported me, some of which are here. Cindy Farrell was literally instrumental to me graduating here. My sophomore year, I ran into a situation to where I didn't have enough to pay my bill. So there were conversations being had at the senior level of the college about whether I should be allowed to continue my education into the spring semester. It was decided that somebody volunteered, Dr. Jeff Walsh, who's no longer here. He served as the academic dean here for a very short amount of time. But I always say that he was, I really think God placed him at Thiel for me. He co-signed for me to get a loan, to be able to stay in school. And then after that, Cindy made sure that I had scholarships. One of those scholarships was funded by Sarah Taylor Rogers, one of our board members. And the support wasn't just financial from not just her, Cindy, and other folks in the college, but they continued to support me throughout my time here and after. Sarah even, I'll never forget it, when I was getting ready to walk across the stage for graduation, I think Roberta grabbed me and said, well, Sarah wants to hug you when you get off the stage. And, I was like, okay. I had met her once or twice, didn't really know her well at the time. And as soon as I walked off the stage, she embraced me with the biggest hug that I've ever, still to this day, received. Her story with that scholarship, it was in honor of her parents. And I was the first graduate to actually graduate, the recipient who actually graduated from the college. So, when I think about Thiel, and there's another person I can't, who was instrumental to my success here, who I can't be remiss to talk about, because she's meant so much to me. She's meant so much to me before I came here, while I was here, and after I came here. I almost didn't come to Thiel. My mom did not want me to go away at all. I cried sending them off to preschool. I couldn't imagine sending one of my boys halfway across the country to go to a college that my mom had never heard of before. Roseanne Go Jacobson, and Vicki Poe, my admissions counselor, sat down with my mom at a hotel in Orlando. This was back when we had an initiative for trying to find enrollments at other areas in the country, and Florida was one of those areas. And in the Shades of Green Hotel, while I was taking my placement test, they sat down with my mom, and they apparently, I wasn't there, so I don't know for sure, but apparently they cried and they prayed. And the end result was my mom coming out of a meeting saying that you're going to that college, and you don't have a choice. So, all these folks have been instrumental in my success here. And it's the reason why I care so much about the college. I'm emotional because I'm passionate about Thiel. Thiel runs in my blood. And a lot of this is because, like I said before, and I tell people all the time, Damon has a similar story, and he says the same thing. Thiel saved my life. Thiel gave me life. And because of that, I'll be forever in its debt and forever in its service. So thank you again. Thank you to the Alumni Board, Liz, and thank you all so much for coming today.